Good evening. This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. Thousands of Israeli soldiers fought their way deep into Lebanon today, almost to the suburbs of Beirut itself. One officer says the search and destroy operation against Palestinian guerrillas is going effectively, fast, and well. In 3 columns across a broad front, the Israelis moved forward. On the coast, one column captured Tyre, surrounded Sidon, and pushed to within 16 miles of Beirut. Another column seized the ancient and imposing PLO stronghold called Beaufort Castle. A third column moved near the Bekaa Valley, which is controlled by Syrian troops. Israel has released no casualty figures, but reporters on the battlefront say the PLO resistance has been fierce. Still to be answered, what will Syria do? We have 3 reports, beginning with Don Kladstrup in Lebanon.
Never before have Israeli tanks ventured so far north. This on a mountain road near the village of Jazin, just 25 miles south of Beirut. As the tanks clawed their way ahead, they came under furious gunfire from Palestinian guerrillas. Plumes of smoke rose from the hillsides as Israeli artillery softened up guerrilla positions to clear a path for the tanks. Guerrillas armed with rocket launchers and other weapons moved from the opposite direction, but the Israeli advance continued.
We can't tell how far the Israelis may advance up this road, but the firing, the shooting is getting closer.
Israeli warplanes streaked overhead, dropping bomb after bomb on Palestinian positions around Damour, less than 5 miles from Beirut. And then this afternoon, the warplane struck Beirut itself, dropping bombs on a Palestinian refugee camp and reportedly inflicting heavy damage to the headquarters of PLO chief Yasser Arafat. The attack came shortly after the American embassy was hit by 2 rockets. No one was hurt, nor did anyone claim immediate responsibility. Syrian soldiers and armored vehicles took up positions around the embassy, while Israeli gunboats took up theirs off the coast. The key question now is, what will the Syrians do? There are 30,000 Syrian soldiers in Lebanon, officially here as peacekeepers, but it may be only a matter of time before they feel compelled to join forces with the Palestinian guerrillas in what will surely mean a much wider war. Don Kladstrup, CBS News, Beirut.
Israel used the second day of the invasion to mop up and move even deeper into Lebanon. At daybreak, waves of reinforcements began streaming across the border, and all day long the armored units kept coming. As the tanks and troops swept in, they unleashed barrages of artillery fire at pockets of resistance which they encountered, and the casualty list climbed.
The Begin government says the purpose of all this is not to seize land, but to wipe out terrorist bases which have been shelling Israel's northern communities, and to drive the terrorists so far north that those communities will no longer have to live under the constant threat of terrorist bombardment.
Tonight, Israel's chief of staff said the invasion has achieved in 24 hours what it had hoped to achieve in 48. After today, Israel controls the cities of Tyre and Nabatea, former PLO strongholds. According to the PLO, the coastal city of Sidon is now surrounded by Israeli paratroopers, tanks, and a seaborne commando force. And after a night which ended in fierce hand-to-hand combat, Israel captured the biggest prize of all, the Crusader fortress known as the Beaufort Castle, which the PLO seized 10 years ago and from which it has repeatedly shelled Israel's northern settlements. Prime Minister Begin spent several hours today visiting that site and touring Israel's northern border, leaving President Reagan's special Middle East ambassador, Philip Habib, to cool his heels until Mr. Begin returned. When he did, he made it clear that this time Israel wants ironclad guarantees that the PLO won't infiltrate southern Lebanon again. Israel has advanced so quickly, the question now seems to be, how much longer can the PLO hold out? Not very, say some military analysts.
If everything goes according to plan and things develop as they look to be developing now on the ground, and of course assuming that the Syrians do not move major formations into action, then I would not think that it would last longer than about Thursday this week. In other words, another 2-3 days.
Israel's military command says otherwise, but CBS News has learned that Israeli and Syrian troops have clashed briefly, and the mystery is whether Syria will choose to do more. It is beefing up its forces, but military planners think that is largely tokenism, and that the badly divided country will not risk an all-out attack by Israel. Bob Fall, CBS News, with the Israeli forces in southern Lebanon.
The fighting in the Middle East intruded into one of the great set-piece displays of Mr. Reagan's trip, his visit to the Vatican and the Italian government. The fighting in Lebanon was already on the president's mind as he arrived for the meeting with Pope John Paul II, though Special Ambassador Philip Habib had not yet arrived in Israel at this point. The two men met alone for 45 minutes. Mr. Reagan was later overheard to say that they had discussed Lebanon, the Falklands, and the Pope's upcoming visit to Argentina. Later, after he had been joined by the First Lady, who donned the traditional black dress and head covering for the papal audience, the president spoke of the world's crisis points.
Your Holiness, one of the areas of our mutual concern is Latin America. We also share your concern in seeking peace and justice in troubled areas of the Middle East, such as Lebanon. Another special area of mutual concern is the martyred nation of Poland, your own homeland.
As an obviously tired Mr. Reagan listened, the Pope, too, mentioned conflicts in the South Atlantic and Middle East.
This grave crisis in Lebanon likewise merits the attention of the world because of the danger it contains of further provocation in the Middle East with immense consequences for world peace.
Then there was an unexpected moment of emotion when American seminarians, whom the president had just greeted briefly, suddenly began to sing. A surprised and touched President and First Lady wiped away a tear or two and then began greeting the crowd. Then the singing began again. Bill Plant, CBS News, with the presidential party in Vatican City.
In Washington, the Pentagon has ordered a Navy amphibious force with 1,800 Marines to sail to the eastern Mediterranean. The ships will stand by in case it becomes necessary to evacuate any of the estimated 4,000 Americans in Lebanon. CBS News will present a special report on the Israeli invasion of southern Lebanon tonight at 11:30, 10:30 Central Time.
Let's end any confusion about new car coverage. They don't stand up to the tough Americans. Introducing Buyer Protection Plan 5, a 5-year, 50,000-mile virtual free ride over the repairs you fear most. 5-year trip interruption protection, 5-year no-rest-through warranty, loaner car assistance, plus a $500 price reduction on every American Motors Concorde, Spirit, Eagle, and SX4. Buyer Protection Plan 5 plus $500, only from American Motors.
What gives New York that special glow? What puts the chic in Chicago? What makes stars shine in the Hollywood sky? The sparkling taste of Canada Dry.
What makes America's #1 mixer sparkle? It's crystal clear. The purer the water, the more sparkling the taste. And nothing sparkles better than Canada Dry.
Club soda, tonic water, ginger ale. America sparkles with Canada Dry.
The slow fuse of the war in the Falklands was still burning as President Reagan flew on to England from Rome. British government sources say the Argentine defenders of Stanley and their British besiegers are now eyeball to eyeball. How much longer the fuse has to go is anyone's guess. Tom Fenton has the first of our 2 reports from London.
Nighttime off the Falklands. The 4.5-inch guns of the British ships that shelled Argentine positions on West Falkland 3 weeks ago are again shelling Pebble Island and Fox Bay. Correspondents on the scene say British commanders are trying to prevent the Argentines from sneaking more troops onto the West Falklands. The appalling winter weather, which has prevented any other major military activity for the past week, is now reported to be improving. Correspondents say British Marines have also outflanked the garrison to the north and are bringing up men, guns, and supplies by sea around the northern coast of the island. Behind the British lines, men of the Gurkha Rifles are cleaning up small pockets of Argentine resistance. An amateur film shows the hills from which the British now dominate Port Stanley. The British troops on the hills are being shelled by the Argentines, as British correspondent Kim Sabito reports.
For 2 nights, as we tried fitfully to sleep in appalling conditions, we had to undergo one of the most frightening experiences known to fighting men: long-distance shelling by heavy guns. These were sighted some 7 miles away around Stanley. The scream of the shells as they howl through the air is just unearthly.
Heavy British guns on the hills are returning the fire. The British Press Association reports tonight that the commander of the British Land Forces has made an 11th-hour appeal to the commander of the beleaguered Argentine garrison. Major General Jeremy Moore, using a VHF radio and an interpreter, asked Brigadier Mario Menendez to tell his men to lay down their arms to avoid further bloodshed. There was no word as to the reply. Tom Fenton, CBS News, London.
A warm royal greeting from Prince Philip for the president, who came to London to publicly assure the British that the U.S. stands with them over the Falklands, and to privately coax Prime Minister Thatcher to leave more room for a negotiated settlement.
There were fears that the U.S. shift in positions on the UN Falklands vote last week would cast a shadow over the president's visit here. But official Britain went to great lengths to indicate that that incident is forgotten.
And indeed, the Queen of England stood on the grounds of Windsor Castle and waited for the Reagans to arrive, 25 minutes late. There were no curtsies for the Queen from the Americans, but that's not really expected. Prince Charles was there. Lady Diana wasn't. She's making no more public appearances till her baby's born. There has been a bit of controversy that developed when the staff of the royal household refused a White House request to film a breakfast for Mrs. Reagan in the Queen's private quarters, and when it was announced yesterday that the president's food tasters would be barred from the royal kitchens. They figure if it's fit for a queen, it's fit for a president. Despite all the gossip in the papers, the White House is expecting a lot of positive press from the visit, from the president's horseback ride tomorrow with the Queen and his unprecedented speech before a joint session of Parliament. Leslie Stahl, CBS News at Windsor Castle.
These haven't been the best of times for United Nations Ambassador Jean Kirkpatrick. There's her well-publicized tension with Secretary of State Haig over Falklands policy, and Haig's recent snafu over the UN Falklands ceasefire resolution, which the U.S. vetoed, but, so the story goes, didn't really mean to veto. Today, in a speech in New York, Kirkpatrick's frustrations were vented in general. She said there's been a long slide for the United States in diplomacy abroad and diplomacy at the UN, a slide from influence to impotence. Part of the reason, said Kirkpatrick, is we simply have behaved like a bunch of amateurs. She said the problem goes back years.
Coronet two-ply paper towels are surprising. They're soft, but they're very strong, even when they're wet. And if you think that's a surprise, they give you more towels on every roll than other national brands, 125 of them. So you get a lot, not pay a lot. Fact is, the more you use Coronet, the more you save. How much will you save? That's hard to say. How strong are they? That's easy to see.
Extra value is what you get when you buy Coronet.
These days, it's excuses, excuses, excuses.
After we make it, it's out of our hands.
Hey, come on, I only sell it.
Hey, I can't fix it. Who sold you this anyway?
But not at a Curtis Mathis Home Entertainment Center. It's the only place our audio and video equipment is sold and serviced. And we back them up with our 4-year limited warranty. So we have to give you service, not excuses.
Curtis Mathis, the most expensive television in America, and worth it.
The kind of rainstorm that some say occurs once in a century hit southern New England during the weekend. The storm, which finally subsided today, left at least 22 people dead or missing. Damage is estimated in the hundreds of millions of dollars. Hardest hit, as Liz Trotter reports, was Connecticut.
The torrents of rain and high winds turned the southern half of Connecticut into a chain of rivers throughout the weekend. As much as 11 inches of rain fell in some parts of the state. More than 1,000 people fled their homes, many stranded in the process, such as these 3 men marooned for 4 hours.
Move it! Move it! Get off of it!
Cars became bathtub toys and homes were houseboats as the water cut a swath through the shore towns. This morning the rain had stopped, but the waters of the swollen Housatonic River were surging through its open floodgates. A tattered Stars and Stripes gave testament to the fury of the storm in Milford. 6 feet of water had engulfed the main street and then destroyed 30,000 tax bills in the basement of the town hall. Small businessmen, most of them with no flood insurance, were hardest hit. Mr. and Mrs. Peter Domek have invested 20 years of their lives and most of their savings in this New Haven machine shop.
We have lost everything. We are, I don't know. How can you rebuild? He's going to be 69 years old.
It was this way in many parts of Connecticut today as the waters receded and victims of the storm tried to pick up their lives. Liz Trotta, CBS News, New Haven, Connecticut.
Congressman Dan Rostenkowski, Democrat of Illinois. He has a big say over who will pay how much in taxes. But now there's a controversy on how much he has not paid for his own golfing trips while lobbyists have. As Susan Spencer reports, some say that's par for the course. Others say it's a brand of familiarity that breeds consent with special interests.
Congressman Danny Rostenkowski likes to play golf, according to his friends, and the chairman of the Tax Writing Ways and Means Committee has a lot of friends. Last year, disclosure documents show his friends, lobbyists and special interest groups, sent him and usually his wife, too, on 9 all-expense-paid trips. Most were golfing outings in Hawaii, in California, in Florida. This year, according to an investigation by the Washington Post, Rostenkowski's friends have almost matched last year's generosity already. Though Congress is in session, his committee is in a virtual holding pattern until the budget is done. So Rostenkowski has attacked the greens, starting 1982 in Palm Springs with the Bob Hope Desert Classic, courtesy the Outdoor Advertising Association. Then on to half a dozen other resorts. Turnberry Isle in Florida, courtesy Elizabeth Arden. The Doral Country Club, courtesy Harness Tracks of America. The Boca Raton Hotel and Club, courtesy a Cosmetics Association. In mid-March, the Rostenkowskis fled the cold to fly to Hawaii, courtesy Helene Curtis. All told, the Post reported, airfares and hotel bills total nearly $10,000 so far this year, speaking fees an equal amount. Contributions from the sponsoring groups or their affiliates, almost $15,000. All is legal under House rules, assuming, that is, that the chairman used the trips to discuss legitimate concerns of the sponsor or to inform them about Congress's activities. Rostenkowski's spokesmen say on those grounds, all was above board. Others are dubious.
One gets the impression that Mr. Rostenkowski has placed himself on the auction block to the private sector of this country. It's kind of have golf clubs will travel if the bid is high enough and if the weather is good enough. If those are the ethical guidelines for all elected officials, then everyone's in a lot of trouble.
Several congressmen also said the leadership should push for tighter rules, but added that's unlikely since the leadership gets most of the juicy trips. Rostenkowski wasn't around for comment today. A spokesman said, "I don't know what you expect him to say. He hasn't done anything wrong." Susan Spencer, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
The Supreme Court took its first formal look today at FBI conduct during Operation Abscam, and it was what the court didn't say that mattered most. The justices, without comment, let stand the Abscam convictions of 2 former Philadelphia politicians. A House committee heard testimony today that the rapid rate of business failures so far this year is costing people a lot more than their jobs. It's also punching a hole in their future safety net, the nation's private pension systems. Said one pension system expert in his testimony today, it appears that we have a time bomb on our hands waiting to go off, and we don't know how large the explosion will be. There was a dramatic incident today in the pro-ERA vigil and fast at the Illinois State Capitol in Springfield. One of the 7 women staging the action became weak and was taken away for medical attention. She is Sonia Johnson, who was excommunicated from the Mormon Church for her feminist stands. Earlier, state police evicted 15 other women who had chained themselves inside the Capitol, also in support of ERA. Later, the women returned to sit in the Senate and House galleries.
Now pull that loop through that loop.
Yep.
Pull them tight.
Hey, look.
You did it.
One milestone coming up.
There she is, Doctor of Shoelaces.
Let's see.
Polaroid's pictures are little celebrations of life. It's fun to see yourself while you're just being yourself. You miss that with pictures you have to get developed.
Want me to do it again?
Every morning.
Great day to shoot a pack.
Long ago, a chosen brave signaled the corn harvest, so essential to my people. Today, corn is essential to Mazola 100% corn oil margarine. Mazola is made from 100% pure corn oil, so Mazola has no cholesterol, naturally. And a flavor that's pure, fresh, and delicious, naturally. Taste the golden goodness of Mazola 100% corn oil margarine.
Mazola, corn goodness.
At the United Nations today, the start of a 5-week session on disarmament. In coming days, President Reagan and 17 other government leaders plan to attend. Today, the vanguard of thousands of nuclear war protesters showed up outside the UN, among them a 97-year-old Japanese Buddhist leader accompanied by his traditionally robed monks. Some of them are on a 13,000-mile march for world peace. Others in the crowd sang some protest songs from the Vietnam days. The State Department said this evening that a Nicaraguan patrol boat directed heavy machine gun fire at a U.S. Navy helicopter today. The copter was not damaged and returned to the U.S. warship where it is based. The State Department says tonight the ship and helicopter were both in international waters. Well, Bill Moyers has been traveling abroad lately. He's just been in the Middle East, and now he's in Bonn, West Germany, where President Reagan will be later this week for the NATO summit. And in his commentary tonight, Bill Moyers points to some connections among the places he's been and the places he's been reading about. A mingling of cradles and graves.
It was helpful to come to Bonn for the NATO summit by way of the Middle East. Nothing so reminds you of how tenuous things are in this world as a new battlefield in the cradle of civilization. Some cradle. The sons of Abraham grew up to slay one another. The descendants of Muhammad have been fighting now for 1,000 years. And the heirs of Christ became in time Protestants and Catholics who would pray on Sunday for strength to split the other's skull on Monday. Some things have changed, of course. Joshua had a trumpet and Begin has tanks. Muhammad's son-in-law used a sword. Khomeini's army uses rocket grenade launchers. Imagine what the Inquisition could have accomplished if instead of stakes and straw, there had been Exocet missiles. Or the Crusaders, if they had marched away to do God's will with a 105-millimeter cannon the British are about to unlimber on Port Stanley. To the oldest passions of the race have been added the newest weapons of war. So it is that Jews and Arabs are making new ruins this week of the Roman ruins of the city of Tyre. And that the fate of the city in Iran for whose ashes I walked last week is the fate that had befallen other cities on the same site through the ages. It goes on and on. People do as groups and nations what they would not do alone. A thoughtful man named Reinhold Niebuhr used to worry that it might not end until this ominous tendency of human history has resulted in perfect tragedy. I suppose that's why I find commendable even the modest effort at collaboration being made at the Versailles and NATO summits. Not much of dramatic note will come from either, even if the industrial democracies were more free of self-interest than other nations. But given how fragile things are and how close we all still are to the cradle, groping awkwardly together is preferable to perfect tragedy. I'm Bill Moyers in Bonn.
It's here, Miss Russell.
Oh, a surprise for us from Playtex. Introducing a beautiful new 18-hour Lovely Look bra that's seamless. Now we full-figured gals can have lovely look styling and a smooth, seamless line. And another surprise, cushiony undercup panels that don't show. Plus the famous 18-hour fabric that stretches for real comfort, real support.
Now save 20% on new 18-hour Lovely Look seamless bras.
Thanks, Playtex.
I'm chewing gum again. It's wonderful.
For years I couldn't because gum stuck to my dental work, but now there's Freedent gum. It doesn't stick, so I can enjoy all the pleasures of chewing gum again. The delicious flavor, fresh, clean breath, and refreshing taste, all that's possible again with Freedent gum from Wrigley's. It comes in peppermint and spearmint. You'll love it.
Feel free to chew Freedent.
It won't stick to most dental work.
Freedent gum.
When Elvis Presley was alive, he found refuge from his fans in his Memphis mansion called Graceland. It was described as the one place in the world where he could get away from it all and be himself. Today, the privacy ended. Graceland was open to the public. Bruce Hall took the tour.
It's been nearly 5 years since Elvis Presley died, but a large throng of the faithful fans gathered early today to be among the first to go on tours through the famed singer's home. There has been family opposition to turning Graceland into a tourist attraction, but executor and former wife Priscilla said she did it to pay the $500,000 a year upkeep.
The way that's being done, and knowing that Elvis would be very proud to have it shown, then sometimes we have to do things we don't like.
There are tour guides with well-rehearsed lines in every room.
My name is Pat, and I'm going to tell you about Elvis's den. And now this was nicknamed the Jungle Room. And Elvis picked this furniture out himself in about 30 minutes. This was Elvis's favorite room.
The home is described as a reflection of the real Elvis, the private Elvis. His tastes were a little unusual. Flashy colors, mirrored ceilings, 23 TV sets, hand-pleated tapestry.
For me to put my foot inside that house, I mean, really, I'm honored, but it's like a dream. I can't even really tell you what I've seen in there.
By far the most emotional part came when the fans visited the grave. One left a single rose, another a teddy bear. With 216 tours a day, the family expects more than 1 million fans a year to show up at Graceland. Bruce Hall, CBS News, Memphis.
And that's the CBS Evening News for this Monday. Until our special report later tonight, Dan Rather reporting from New York. Thank you for joining us.
When this young executive bought a house, he looked in towns where the commuter trains were reliable. Smart. And when he bought a new car, he researched resale prices on the model he wanted. Smart. And today, he's placing the biggest order for plain paper copiers in his company's history. He chose Savin, the company with an extensive product line and the largest service network in the industry. Smart.
Sandy Duncan at the Nabisco Baker's Picnic.
Do it again. We bake our wheat thins thinner. You have to really hit the word thinner. That's important because the thinner the wheat thins, the better the taste. Keep practicing and I'll just keep eating wheat thins one after the other.
We bake our wheat thins thinner. You get a better taste.
Yes!
Wheat Thins crackers. The thinner the wheat thins, the better the taste. From Nabisco.
Universe, a chimp raised as a human child. How to wreck a building to the nearest quarter of an inch. And a star so bright you can read by it. All on Walter Cronkite's Universe, Tuesday.
This is CBS.
The first